Hello and welcome to the Strong Suit Podcast, where we focus on the people part of your business. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I interview a world-class expert on talent and recruiting so that you can build a company filled with rock stars. My guest today is on the verge. This is a burgeoning business in a fascinating sector, and she's doing some big stuff at Sera Labs. Now, if you're not familiar with Sera Labs, they are in this very hot category of CBD, which we're going to talk about, including some of the myths and some of the realities. Nancy Duitch is the CEO of the business, recently closed a very sizable round of investment to scale Sera Labs. And over the next 15, 20 minutes, we're going to talk about how she's building the team, the organization. She's already got dozens of people in the business. And this, by the way, is after being a CEO multiple times before. So to say that she's a lifelong student is an understatement. So with all that, welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
It's great to have you. Why don't we start with just a high-level overview of what Sera Labs is and the products, and then we can kind of go from there into the people part.
Okay, great. Sera Labs is a health, wellness, and beauty company, and we utilize high quality products for wellness and health and beauty arenas. Our job is, and our company's mission statement is dedicated to bringing high quality premium products to the marketplace. And CBD is the common thread with all of our products. We have three divisions. One is Sera Relief, which is our health and wellness area.
Yep.
The other area is Sera Pets, which is our pet category. And then we have Sera Topical, which is our high prestige level skincare program. And for anyone that's been hiding under a rock the past few years, can you just explain CBD so people understand what it is and what it's not? Yes. CBD is cannabidiol, and it is one of the active ingredients in the cannabis or hemp plant. And it is in cannabinoids, there are, I believe, over 100 known cannabinoids right now. And we all have, and in 1995 it was discovered, we all have cannabinoid receptors in our brain. Mm-hmm. And which is why people, when they take THC-driven cannabis, that they get high so easily. Well, cannabinoids, and like I said, in 1995 were discovered by an Israeli doctor, and he realized that there were so many great, benefits, health benefits for CBD, for the cannabinoids, because of our receptors. And by the way, animals have more receptors than humans do. So they really take to the better products, even more than humans do. Right. And so what he discovered was that if you have pain, if you're feeling pain, if you've got, if you're trying to fight inflammation, if you are, if you've got anxiety or stress, that cannabinoids, what they do, and the entourage effect of all the different cannabinoids really have, really wonderful benefits for you. Mm-hmm. And being in the health, wellness, and beauty arenas for most of my life made me really excited to know that there was an ingredient that we could add to our products or make brand new products and really give a benefit to the public. And so we're really proud and excited about the quality that we created and the products that we're delivering to the consumers.
And you launched the business when?
Well, it's embarrassing to say we launched in mid-July of 2018, and we're killing it.
Incredible. In less than a year. Incredible. So you closed on this recent round of funding, pretty significant investors. You plan to expand the business. I'm assuming part of that through hiring people. Let's talk about that. What does the team look like today, and what do you envision a year or two from now?
Well, it's really interesting because when we started the company, we had a team of about 5 people, and I brought in a brilliant young man, Adam Wellington, who was very active in the online digital business and really knew how to really create, how to get sales, how to generate sales, and really and really build our online business. It was very difficult because you couldn't advertise CBD any place except through email marketing before the Senate, Congress, and Trump passed the Farm Act bill.
Yep.
Then things opened up, not as big as anybody would have hoped, but we were, unlike other companies, very compliant. And as the FDA and the FTC decide on guidelines, as they have come out and made and had made speeches about how we really need to not make any claims and be careful with our compliance, we have followed their guidelines all the way through. And so it's made it very difficult, but we have gotten through it. I'd rather be in business for a long time and be with the right people and have the right people around me. So we have put together quality assurance and compliance guidelines for everything from our products all the way to our advertising and what we're allowed to say and not allowed to say. We let our lawyers run that part of the business.
Got it.
Or at least guide us. So we started out. We started out with. I have a fantastic lieutenant, a couple of great lieutenants and project managers with the company. And because we started out online, Adam had a development team. He had an internal buying team for media, and he already had a director of operations for digital.
Yep.
We do outsource a lot. We outsource our graphics for the building of the websites. We use different copywriters depending on what our needs are at the time, because you need a different person for beauty than you do for health and wellness, as you do for pets. I have an operations team that is really great. We brought in 3 operations people so far. Yep. And one is a vice president of operations, and he's more systems oriented. He's the one putting all our systems in place.
And all these folks are in one place?
Well, we have 2 offices. We have one office in Miami for our digital team, and we have an office in Los Angeles and Sherman Oaks, California for all the administrative, all of the corporate, and the retail side of the business.
Got it. What's the common theme that connects these folks? Is there a common DNA or characteristic that they all share regardless of the kind of role?
I believe that what we all share is really creating success for our customers, and in turn creating success for the company. If we can keep our customers happy, whether they be a buyer at a retail chain or they are an end customer that is taking the product, we want complete satisfaction. And what that does is it creates a company culture of everybody working together and really coming together for the same goal and purpose. And I think having a vision, and a strategy for the company that everybody follows, as well as objectives, and then having. I believe the millennials are the greatest tactical group of people I've ever met in my life. And trust me, I've gone through a lot to find these fabulous millennials, And when you find a great one, there's nobody better tactically than this group of people in their mid-20s to mid-30s, because they've put their blinders on. And they go, and if you tell them what to do, they are fantastic at getting things done. So I think we've got a real balance here of creative people and doers. So and everybody here walks the walk. Nobody just talks and sits around. I won't allow that. We have no bureaucracy. We have processes and procedures people have to follow, but there's no mid-level management here where people aren't working, at least 10 to 12 hours a day. And my goal always is to have people go home and be thinking about what they can do to improve what they're doing here. Because I believe a brain that's working all the time is a brain that is, gets smarter, and then you evolve as a human being.
So how do you interview and assess potential candidates for that characteristic, right? It's a very noble characteristic, but hard to find. So how do you know when you found someone there?
Oh my God, luck. I think so much of it is luck. A lot of the people that we have here, I actually have known. I think that trust is something that, myself along with other CEOs, I'm sure have a big problem with. So I do have a problem trusting people. So I've had people here that are working with me. I have one person who's been with me for over 21 years. I've
Wow.
got I've got another person who I just brought on to run my sales. He's our vice president of retail sales.
Mhm.
And he was my EVP of sales at my last company. And then he worked with us for 5 years. And so we're very close and I trust him implicitly. So I think bringing in people that come recommended from other people is always the best. But we've been very fortunate to have some fantastic people that we actually got from Indeed and ZipRecruiter.
No kidding. Wow.
And
So,
yes,
so you mentioned that you've known most of these folks for a while. Do you worry at all as the business scales, which it's certainly on track to do that, about
yes.
how you're going to continue to hire and find great people when you run out of people that you know?
I don't think I'll ever run out of people that I know. But I know a lot of people.
Yeah.
But when you've had other companies and you've sold those companies, people want to follow you around. People want to be with successful companies. And today we just had a meeting and I had two young people sitting here looking at me with glassy eyes when I told them what was going to come once we started shipping all the major retailers. And so far it's been great, but God, we're getting into some crazy times now where we're going to be shipping a ton of them. And I said, don't worry, we have to find we've got to find somebody that is a shipping, that is more of in an operation shipping manager. We need to find, we need to find two more people. And the first place I always go to is I go to people I know and start asking around. And I said, let's ask our CFO, who was the CFO of Capital Brands, who brought the Magic Bullet and the NutriBullet to market. So
Yeah.
what a great person who was with a company already, who was like a nothing company, and they grew that company to $500 million. Those are the people I'm looking for.
Right.
The people that have actually taken nothing and built it into something, whatever their job may be, because
Yep.
it's a different kind of person that you're trying to hire when you have a 10,000 person operation rather than when you have a 25 person operation and you're growing your company to $30 million in its first full year to $100 million in its second full year.
Yeah. Totally
So,
different animal, right?
which is why I never hire anybody who has worked for a major company and hasn't been with them since the beginning, so they know how to roll up their sleeve and clean the kitchen, wash the dishes, and be able to do multiple jobs at the same time.
Yep. Got it. Let's talk about mistakes. You've made hiring mistakes, both at this I'm sure at this company and in previous companies.
Yes.
We don't have to name names, but when you look back, what was it that you missed and that
I'll
you
tell you,
wish you had done differently?
I hired a gentleman who came highly recommended, who I knew from my industry, and I was so desperate to have that particular job, filled because
Yeah.
I needed that person, that I didn't realize, and I didn't do my due diligence properly.
Yep.
And it didn't take me very long. It was fine for a couple of months when we were just building up and we were just starting. But once we were really in the thick of things, I realized that this was a person who got very nervous and tried to please me instead of doing his job.
Yep.
So it was a very nice departure. And I found somebody else, very quickly.
Yep.
And I talked to him about him not being right for this job, and I allowed him to resign, from the company to save face. And I probably I probably terminated him a month too late. So as Warren Buffett says, you hire slow and you fire fast.
You're supposed to.
Which I think is really smart. I hired him too fast, but I did fire him pretty fast too.
Yeah. And in hindsight, what could you have done differently to help you know earlier that there was a disconnect?
I'm not sure I could have known earlier that there was a disconnect. I think that I needed to have that person in place. I probably, I should have interviewed more people, but I was very concerned that I, that it was going to be a difficult job. And also I had a specific price range that I was willing to pay somebody, and it wasn't, and a lot of these guys in that position are used to making double what I was willing to pay.
Right.
And so I left those guys, I left all of those people out of the equation.
Yeah.
So I could have advertised on LinkedIn and probably have gotten a lot of resumes and interviewed from that point.
Yep.
But I felt that it was important that I bring somebody in who had been a founding member of an organization. And so I think what he did is he put us back about 6 weeks, but it wasn't terrible.
Which in the scheme of things is not terrible.
Yeah, and in the big picture, it's not terrible. It got me where I needed to go to. The man who's our vice president of operations now, he wasn't available until that time anyway.
Yep.
So it worked out fine. But sure, I've made plenty of hiring mistakes. I've made mistakes where I've allowed a independent contractor to be hired into the company because one of the person that he reported to said, oh my God, we need this person. He's so great. And I said, my gut tells me that he's not, or she's not the right person. And they said, please, you're wrong. And it turned out that the person was a nightmare, and I should have, and so one of my issues is not listening to my gut sometimes when, at that particular time, at least in the past. Now I don't do that anymore. I listen to my gut.
Got it. And last question, tell us about the process. So I'm sure you interview them. How many people interview candidates? What do you do after the interviews before you extend an offer, if anything?
We usually have 2 to 3 people interview somebody before me, unless they're an executive.
Yeah.
And then I'm the last person that meets with them, so they have to get through 2 to 3 people before they get to me. We then have a process where we do a check on somebody. We call their references. And of course, when you call somebody's references, people are only going to give you references when they're positive. Nobody's giving you references of when they've been terminated from a job.
Of course.
So we do call the other companies on there. And again, nobody wants to get sued, so very few people are going to say anything. They're just going to tell you. When somebody says, all I can tell you is the date they were hired and the date they left the company, it gives you a pretty good feeling. You know exactly why they aren't saying anything. If they have nothing nice to say, then that means there's nothing nice to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been phenomenal, and I so appreciate you making the time. It's so cool to find a company that's on the verge, because this industry is exploding, the one that you're in, Nancy, and to see that you've raised the money, you've built a team in such a short time. I give you so much credit. How can people learn more about the business or get in touch, Nancy?
Well, I just have one more thing to say, Jeff, and that is that as a woman, it's never easy, and even in today's environment, sometimes it's difficult for men, not younger people, but people who are middle-aged, to really take a look at a woman and say, that's my boss. Yep. So I think because I've been very fortunate in my career to have, to be involved in some very successful operations, it makes it a little bit easier for me today at my age. But climbing up that ladder was not so easy.
Pretty hard stuff.
Yeah, you know what they say about a woman when she is tough, they call her something else.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's true, but hopefully it's changing a bit.
A little bit, not as much as you would think, but it is. I find that that the millennials are much more respectful about that and don't really think about it because they've grown up in a totally different environment. So I do find that really interesting. A man's just always a good businessman when he's tough, but a woman isn't. But anyway, yeah. So
well, Nancy, I appreciate you adding that. That's very important for listeners to know.
Yes.
And our listeners with women executives is growing, so I appreciate that very much.
So getting a hold of me is always good at Nancy at the Sera, Sera Labs.com. If anybody is interested in talking to me personally. Otherwise, our website is Sera, Sera Labs Health.com. And it is it's a fully robust site, and anybody who's listening on this show and they want to buy some CBD products, whether in any of those categories, if you just type in thank you 20 on all capital letters, you'll get a 20% discount.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you for offering that. We appreciate that. And congratulations on building the business. It's really fantastic news.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.